Hi, today I'm going to show you how to put together the 3 boxes in the unique gift box set. This is box number 1, so we'll start with this one. So first we'll put the panels on the middle panel first on the lid. I do pre-fold the pieces to get it ready for the assembly. You can see how it's folded there on the score lines. We'll just center it. There should be a little edge around each of the sides, so it has a little white edge on the top. And then we'll continue to put a couple more panels on. So I do like to get some of the panels on if I can first. So this is the bottom portion, the side of it, and you'll see how I'm actually centering this so there's a little space in the right and left of each panel, but it goes fills the panel from top to bottom. So normally I will put a panel that has space on every side, but for this particular box I just decided to do it on the sides rather than the top and bottom. So it's almost like you can see the box, a line of the box from the top to the bottom of every shape. I just wanted to change it up a little bit. So just continue to add those, and again try to center best you can so you have equal space on the right and left. And it would be cute if you emboss this. I didn't emboss this particular box. I did that on the next box. But you could use so many different colors on this box and for any occasion. It's kind of in a spring theme, but could be for Christmas, could be for Valentine's Day. Anyways, all occasion gift box. That's what I like about making some generic gift boxes. So here's a little bit larger. This is from the top section of the box. So again, you're going to center it. So the top and the bottom will match up. So you want to match up the edge of the top and bottom as you see it of that particular panel to the panel section, and the right and left will only have the space. So that's consistent across all these boxes. The only difference is maybe like the top, the lid. And then we'll finish this up. And this video is sped up a little bit, so don't think I'm going fast. I'm an extremely slow crafter because I make mistakes frequently. So I find if I go too fast, it hurts me. Just the way it is. So now we're going to add I just forgot to do it in the first step, but we're going to add those little panels to the lid edges, I should say. So again, there's only space on the right and left, and it's easier to match this one up because you can match it up to that, the actual curve of the panel will meet with the curve of the lid edge. So just take your time, match it up, try to center it, make sure it's centered and lined up with the edge. I skipped one though, so I can go back, but I think I was trying to speed up. Yes, I do go back and talk over my videos. If you've watched any of my other videos, you know I'm not very good at speaking on at the same time as making crafts, so I just find this is better for me. And then we just add that last panel to finish up the panels on the lid. I left that top purposely blank, blank slate, so you could add anything really, any object you want. So these last panels we're going to leave out until later because they're shaped and they'll go on these sides, but it's easier to add them after than try to assemble the sides with the panels on. Okay, we're going to start with the assembly of the bottom of the box first. So you can glue them to the bottom or you can glue them on the inside. I tend to want to glue them to the bottom because it'll make it a stronger box. But before we do that, let's go ahead and glue this other side using that little tab there. You want to glue that on so we have all one strip. Just match up that edge with the tab fold and apply pressure before you start assembling it and gluing it onto that bottom of the box. So you could glue it inward like this or outward. I do like to glue on the outside because it makes it stronger on that fold, actually strengthens the box. So I like to fold it underneath, and also it's easier to match it up. So you can see I'm matching up the edges of the bottom piece to the tab fold, the inner tab fold, and then applying pressure to the tabs. Like I said, if you're advanced and you want to glue it on the inside, that's fine. But you know, if you don't like seeing the tabs on the bottom, you can always duplicate that. You could make a smaller piece with your software to cover it if you wanted to. Most people are not going to flip their boxes upside down to look. If it's a gift box, it's a gift box. They're going to see it as it is. So you just continue folding it around and applying pressure, and then once you get to that last piece, you'll have a little tab at the end. I didn't push it in, but you want to push it in probably prior to gluing that last piece, but you can gently push it in if you've already glued it, and then add glue to that small tab to complete the edge. One of the reasons I put the box together this way is so you could reach in different areas to apply pressure where you needed to while you were assembling the box. That's getting a little towel to wipe off my excess glue. So that finishes off the bottom portion of the box. So now we're going to start on the middle section. So you want to make sure you score all those, pre-score them before you start gluing. And then you'll just glue these little tabs. You see how you glue that tab, and then you're going to get it right position for you to align that edge with the tab fold. And you can feel it with your fingers that it's aligned properly. You can do the whole side. I'm doing the bottom piece first. I'm just going to go ahead and align that edge to the tab fold. Hold it a little bit because we want to make sure that it's nice and secure before you glue the next tab. Then we'll fold in those other two tabs and glue them to the top. You see I'm aligning that up with the tab fold, and then you can kind of feel with your finger to make sure that they're aligned properly. And we'll get that last one. You want to make sure this is good and dry before you move on to the next one. Fortunately, it can sit there for a second. You can see I'm just folding it. Just make sure it's nice and folded on those score lines, because it will make it easier for you to glue and also to get it attached to the bottom. So we're doing some more of the same, just like that first piece. And then once we're done with this, we'll attach both pieces together. Now I find the key for me is just to hold the pieces long enough, the tabs long enough. It depends on the glue you use. I'm using the Scotch Quick Dry Tacky Glue, and but but I like to hold it a little bit. You just have to know how your glue handles, and that's that. A fine tip applicator helps when you're getting into those small little areas. And I do have a link. I'll have a link below in the notes to information on those if you're interested. But that does hold my Scotch tacky glue specifically. Then now that they're both glued together, we want to glue, put them together, obviously, assemble them. So I'm going to do all 3 tabs at once, add glue to all 3 tabs, and then I'm going to start, you could do from the top to the bottom or the bottom to the top. Start at the bottom. You want to carefully line up that edge. Make sure that where it folds is matching up. And then just carefully line that up so that edge lines up to the tab fold. Then go ahead and glue that last tab. Now the other side, you could do it from edge to edge. It's a little bit different. You kind of want to pull it gently apart. It doesn't hurt anything, so you can see I have it kind of, it's inside each other. And then I add glue to those tabs. Now whenever you're trying to close something like that, of course it's going to try to close on you, so it's a little bit harder to glue, as this will demonstrate. It's such a small tab that it's hard to glue with I was using textured paper, the AC card stock. So if you kind of move a little bit, it's going to pull away, which this is what it does. So with this one, I went edge to edge. So I did one side and then the other, and I went out of view for a minute here. Then carefully got that side tab and then matched up that middle one and applied pressure. And then readjusted the side tabs a little bit. So whenever you're doing an odd shaped box, things like that happen. So now I'm just going to pull back these tabs, getting it ready to attach to that bottom piece. I'm just going to sit like this in the box. We're going to glue those tabs to the inside. So I pulled them back to help fold them, and I'm going to fold them into so they go into the box to okay. So first I'm just trying to find the glue here. I'm going to glue one tab only. So you're going to slide that tab in, match it up to that edge. The fold will match up with the edge, and carefully apply pressure with your fingers. Until it's secure. You want to be really careful. I'm folding it back. I'm going to fold it back, but you want to be really careful that you hold on to that tab. Just gently folded it back so we could add glue to the remaining tabs. If you do this in one fell swoop as I'm doing it, you want to make sure there's enough glue but not too much glue so it leaks out. So then you fold it down and we'll apply pressure on each tab one at a time, but going quick enough so before the glue dries. Otherwise it's hard to get your glue bottle into those small areas. You could if you had a fine tip applicator, but it's very difficult. And I apologize if you're looking at my hands. My hands are just wrecked from doing yard work in this dry weather, and oh, my poor little cuticles. I was working with ink too, so unfortunately my latest videos were really bad hands. They hurt too, so it's part of doing paper crafting. So now we're going to attach the top edge. So this is just attaching those 2 pieces at the tab. And then we're going to do the whole thing, attach the other side as well. So when we attach it, we'll attach those tabs to the inside of the box, similar to how we attach that bottom piece. So we'll fold it back into each section on that top angled area So let's make sure it's good and dry before we do that. You'll see this is how it's going to fit in. And then it will just fold back, similar to how we did that earlier. So you want to fold those back a little bit just to get them flexible to fold back if you're using a thick cardstock like I am. And then glue one piece first. Make sure it's good. This one's a little bit harder to get secure because of the angle, so you want to make sure you get it in place. And because we really can't apply pressure but with our fingers because of the angle, you want to make sure it's all secure. So kind of jumped over here and I spent some time placing some pressure on that, so when I pulled it back gently to glue the other tabs, that it doesn't come off. So go ahead and add glue to all the tabs there, just like we did to attach to the bottom. And you'll do the same thing. You'll push it in. You'll go tab by tab, just pressing it against the inside side portion, that top section. It just takes a little longer than a traditional box because of the traditional box, if it's square, you can kind of flip over and apply pressure against a table. Well, this one you kind of have to be a little bit more patient. You have to apply it with your hand. This is another good reason why we don't have the panel on yet, because if there's any glue on your hands, hopefully there's not. Make sure your hands are good and clean, but as you're rubbing on these sections, you know, you could get something on there, so we'll be covering that with a panel. So that's it. Finishes the bottom box portion. Now we'll add the panels. So as you can see, it has little score lines. You can just fold those gently. And the top section will be the largest section. So the bottom is smaller than the top. So you want to make sure the panels is situated just so. And you can dry fit it just to make sure. So once you get glue on it, just like other panels, we're going to line it up so it's centered like left to right. It's not centered on the top, so you want to line it up to the top edge. And then once you get the top edge glued, you want to do the center of the box and then the bottom section. So go from top to bottom. Biggest thing is that it'll be centered on that panel from left to right. So you have a little edge of white on this box from left to right, just like that top panel and the bottom panel. So just have to adjust here. Trying to line it up best I can with the top and bottom. So you'll see the repetition here. I've sped the video up just a bit, but you want to, I thought it was best. I'm using using a thick cardstock to attach, so it's taking me a little bit more pressure than if you were using like a thinner pattern paper. But you do want to apply pressure at that top part, fold it over, then the middle part, and then the bottom part. But like I said, it wouldn't take me as long if I were using something like just a thinner cardstock or a thinner pattern paper. I think the biggest part for me when I'm doing panels like this is just patience and waiting how long it takes me to apply pressure and trying to make sure I don't stop doing it before I need to, because otherwise it bulges out on me. This is kind of a fun box because you can actually change the colors to every panel if you wanted to. I think I'm going to have to do a really colorful one at one point. have different panel colors on each section. That would be fun. Okay, so it's going to finish that. So the box is essentially finished. So now we have to just assemble the lid. So with the lid, the way it's going to go together is just you're going to glue that each tab to the adjacent, underneath the adjacent side or edge. Just making sure you're lining up those edges with the tab fold. And what I usually do, since I'm right-handed, I hold the one tab while it's still drying. To conserve some time, I'm holding it, applying pressure while I'm gluing the next tab, which works well. First I get it in place, kind of hold it. While I'm holding it in place, flip that other tab up, and then add glue to it. And by the time I'm ready to glue it, the other tab's already secured. In these boxes, I do have different methods of putting together the bottom, top, and the lid. Sometimes I play with different construction, different ways of putting it together to see how it goes. Not saying they're all the greatest, but I'm always trying to find the easiest way to put things together. Sometimes I'm successful, sometimes I'm not. It's all a learning process. So that finishes the lid. You see how it goes on? It's kind of a fun, funky gift box. That's the first. And we'll go on to the next one. I just wanted to show you it takes a second to put it on. There it is. So here's the second box we're going to make. So as with the last box, we will add some of the panels first, make it easier. And I'm also pre-folding all this lid. So the lid is the one with the little indentations on the edges. We'll go ahead and add that panel. You're going to center it. So for this one, all sides, you should see it should be right in the center, and all sides will have an edge around it. And then for this, there will only be an edge on the right and left. Similar to the other boxes, the top and bottom match up. The edges match. So you can just place it. It's easy because you can just place it within the shape on the edge of the lid. You want to center all four of those panels similarly. This just makes it much easier because you do have the shapes to match it up to. So there shouldn't be any edge on the top and bottom, like the top of the lid. And this will be consistent all the way with all the panels on the side of the box. I used an embossing folder. If you never use embossing folders, they are great. I love them. It gives it texture. So it pops up the paper in different patterns depending on the embossing folder. If you found them, you know what I mean. So I just added a little dot texture, which this is one of the it's a Sizzix texture fades, I believe. One of the Tim Holtz collections. So we're going to, this time with the last box we didn't assemble it right away. We're just going to assemble this box. So add glue to that one of those tabs, side tabs, and then you want to match up the adjacent edge to the tab fold and hold it until it's secure. I had some excess glue on my finger, so cleaning that off. Then continue to do the same around. So for the next one, just fold it in, match up the fold on the tab to the adjacent edge, apply pressure, and do the same for the last two tabs. Fortunately, that's big enough for me to reach in with a big bottle, but this is where a fine line applicator comes in handy. Lid's complete there, so we'll go on to the regular box. So first we'll add the panels. This is the bottom of the box. So on the edges that will fold up, so there's that middle is the bottom, and then the edges fold up. We want to add those panels and just make sure they're centered, right to left, centered. The edges should match top and bottom. Hope that's making sense. Well, with me talking and seeing it visually, hopefully something makes sense. If I don't make sense, then hopefully the video does. And it is harder to glue on pre-embossed panels. So I usually have to apply a little bit more pressure so they don't pop up on me. Now I want to fold these side pieces. So you can see how I'm folding it. It's going to be the shape of the box. So I would, it would be highly beneficial if you did this prior to assembling, because it does get difficult to assemble with a fold in the middle. This out of the three, I think this one is a bit more challenging to match up the edges when you glue it. So now I'm going to pull that tab forward a little bit, as you can see, because I'm going to glue it underneath the inside edge of the bottom portion, the side. So that's the bottom side, it's the side. So we want to match up that edge to the tab fold. We're going to do this for all four. So when you fold it, I'm going to fold that tab forward. It's helping to place the edge so it glues properly. Be careful how much glue you get towards the actual fold, though. You don't want it leaking up. That's the catch-22 about putting panels on first, because this increases the possibility of getting glue on the panels. But I'm doing it with these boxes because these boxes are just strangely folded. With the exception of these sections, we put the panels on first. Because, you know, gravity is your friend, and we can't use gravity if the box is already together. It's just harder to add the panels. So where we can, we put them on first. Okay, so once those are on, I just flip it over to apply pressure from the inside. And you could have done this with every tab too. So I know the tabs don't really match up, but you want to glue one of those bottom edges for the bottom tabs, similar to how you did the lid. The nice part is we can flip it over and basically on this section. And then we'll glue the remaining tabs to the inside of the adjacent edge. So we're going to add glue to all three tabs. There's repetition in this video, so we're going to go ahead and carefully match that up. You want to try to get the right panel that I'm gluing on. You kind of have to do multiple things at once. You kind of have to match up to make sure that the edge matches up with the fold. Make sure that that fold, the first major fold in the panel, matches up with the fold on the panel that you're gluing on. So that everything's matching up as you carefully glue it. This one does take a lot more patience because of the fold, it wants to naturally pull apart. So depending on your glue, the pressure you use, this could be challenging. I'm not going to say this is not a challenging box to put together. I wouldn't worry too much. Try to match them up best you can. Even if it looks like the edge doesn't look really clean. You see we're doing this starting again. We're going on each side. If it doesn't, if you don't think you matched them up really well on the side, it still would look okay. I'm going to show you at the very end how you can use chalk or ink to cover up those edges if you have any kind of glue that's showing, or maybe your edges aren't matching great. In the end, it'll look okay. There are tricks. I don't want to call them mistakes, but tricks to covering things when it comes to gluing. Because quite honestly, this wasn't my easiest or my best gluing journey. I was having struggles with it. I was a little tired when I was putting it together. Not a good combo. And with the combination of the textured paper and that fold, it is a bit challenging to fold it. But in the end, I like the result. It's just a matter of the process. And do be careful. I see I used a little bit too much glue right there, but fortunately I have a panel that's going to cover it. To me, when you're doing projects like this, like in these sections, you just need to be patient with yourself. Because they're really not that hard. It's just a matter of taking it moment by moment. Tab by tab. And with all shaped boxes, as you get to the end or the last side, it becomes a little bit more difficult. Because the pressure from the other sides is causing some issues, and you may have some issues with reaching in. And this is one of the reasons why I assembled the box this way too, because of the fold. I thought it might be difficult to, if I were to put it together differently, to get my hand in there, but I think of all three, this one was a little bit more difficult to put together. And then I'll just finish it up. I'll let you watch that. So just make sure those are good and secure before adding the panels after you're on that last side. And then for those side panels, let me see, it's all together. For the side panels, they fold inwards, so they'll have a little score in them. So you kind of want to fold them inward. The top portion is larger than the bottom, so make sure it goes on that way. I would highly recommend dry fitting them before you put them on, and you'll just want to see you're matching up that bottom edge and centering it left to right in the panel. If you were looking at it from up and down, you can see there's a edge on both sides. So it's matching the edge on that bottom panel. So you just continue with all 4 panels. You'll know if you have it on wrong if it doesn't fit right. So just match it up, fold it up. And we didn't put a panel on that top edge because of the way the lid goes on. It's not necessary, and it would just cause it to be thicker, but you won't see it anyways with the lid once the lid is on the box. The reason we didn't put the panel on, I don't know if I said this already, but the reason we didn't put the panels on before is because when you put panels on something folded like this, it would have just made it that much more difficult to assemble it. And sometimes it kind of doesn't fold in the right place for the box with the panel on, especially these oddly shaped boxes. That basically finishes it. We're going to do a little bit finishing touches on it, but the lid will now go on because that's already finished. Just applying additional pressure, making sure that those panels are good and set. So when you're putting this lid on, because of those edges, those cutout edges, it may get stuck, but it will go on. It's kind of a fun. It reminds me kind of a castle too, the way that I did that. So here's where it comes. I'm using some Pebbles chalk. You could use ink as well. But my edges where I glued, I wanted a little bit of shading there because I really didn't match it up in a couple areas. Like I said, I was tired. So always nice to put just kind of a soft shading. And I'm matching it with this purple chalk to the other color. I'm just going all the way up. Sometimes I think it's the ink and the chalk is always a good thing to kind of not hide things, but really hide things. If you had any excess glue or anything like that, for some reason you couldn't avoid it, because sometimes you can't. There's ways to use different mediums like chalk and ink and chalk ink to not hide it, but to lessen the visibility of things like that. So I'm doing the same thing on the edges just to make a consistent look and feel. And this will finish off the box. So once again, this is what it looks like put together. Carefully put on the lid. All the way down, it just got stuck. That's it. And we'll go on to the third one here. So this is kind of reminds me of kind of an Asian flair, but it's really not intended. But for this third box, similar to the first two, we're going to work on the lid first. That middle is for the middle section in that box. So this first panel, we're going to center it. So as with the other lid tops, or panels, I should say, those are centered, so they have edges around all sides. Again, the side panels will only have edges if you're looking at it vertically on the left and right. So I'm just going to fold on the scores a little bit to get it ready to assemble when we're there. And we'll add these lid edge panels, the side of the lids. So as you can see, as with the other boxes, we're consistently only putting white spaces on the edge. So there's only spacing on the right and left. So center it best you can on this section. There is a tab on each lid edge. So just make sure that you're centering it on the area where between the edge and the tab fold. Hopefully you can see that. Then once we have these all done, we'll go on to the next portion. And there's the last one. My dog making noises in the background. Okay, so this is the middle of there's like a little pop-up section of the lid. So these are the panels for the lid for that top portion. So that centers just like that other top lid panel. And then these go on like the lid edge panels or side panels, where there's only space on the right and left of each panel. So I quickly had to take that off so I could adjust it. I didn't get it on right. When you have quick drying glue, the side effect is you better get it on right. I mean, I've had to cut many a item again because for some reason I just wasn't paying attention and let it dry on. That was salvageable, but many of the things I do are not. I'm sure somebody can relate out there. It's like I'm talking to you, but talking to a bunch of people, but I'm not. I'm talking to myself and my dogs. So once we get these on, we're going to attach this section to the lid. And we have that final panel. And then we have this, so we're going to assemble this first. So with you're going to add glue to those little tabs and then fold them in and align the tab fold to the edges of the adjacent side. Which is nice with this one, you can flip it over and apply pressure against the table if you need to. And one thing, I always make sure I have a wet paper towel nearby to wipe my excess glue, because it happens a lot. So now we're just going to fold those up and glue them to the inside of that little piece. So I always start with one side first, one tab. Then once that's secure, we'll glue on the remaining tabs. So go ahead and just put your fingers in, and from the outside. Poor fingers. I'm so sorry about my fingers. I wish I could do something about them. Healing. They look so bad. Make sure it's good and secure before you do the rest of them. And then go ahead and glue them to the top of the lid. So once that's attached, we'll go ahead and glue the lid sides together with the little tabs. You see I'm just folding those in. Then we'll just add glue to each of the tabs. Make sure everything's folded nicely so it glues well. Go ahead and add glue to each of the tabs, and then go ahead and make sure you align the edge of each side to the tab fold until the lid is assembled. Now that that's done, we'll go on to the bottom of the box. So this is the actual bottom portion of the box. So I'm going to fold it on the scores to get it ready before we put on the panels. As with the other boxes, we're putting the panels similarly on. We're going to center it. So you'll see that it's a little bit taller on one side. So as the box goes up, the taller it goes towards the top. So those edges fold up. So just make sure you put it in on appropriately. So there's a slight angle in it. So doing it from the side, the larger side, so you have to flip it over here. The larger side is to the right hand side when you're looking at this. And make sure that there's a little space on each side like we've been putting all the other panels. So after this, we'll get the side pieces ready to glue on. So we're not going to add the panels yet. We'll add that side panel last because of all the folds. So, but first we want to make sure that these are pre-folded a little bit on the scores before we attach them, as it'll make it easier to assemble. So you're going to see I'm folding that tab forward. You can see how I'm folding that tab upwards and then the other one's downwards. So and this is to help glue it on. So that's how it's going to go. So that edge is going to match up to the inside of that tab fold. Let's go ahead and add glue to that tab. And then go ahead and match up that edge to that tab fold. Make sure it's aligned center with the panel, the bottom panel, and then apply pressure. We'll do that for all 4 panels. And then we'll assemble the sides together after we get these attached. So now that we have all 4 sides on, we'll start gluing the tabs, the side tabs. So if you watched how box 2 is put together, this is similar to that. We're going to glue this little tab on the bottom first. I would do one side at a time. I'm showing both sides here, but because of the shape it makes it difficult. I just couldn't edit this. I just thought it would be confusing if I edited this out, but go ahead and glue that together like that. As you can see, the shape, it's a little bit difficult to deal with, so we only want to do one side at a time. So I did that edge, and in this example I'm showing the second edge as well, but what I would recommend is doing just one full side at a time, and you'll see that in just a minute because it doesn't hold very well when you're doing both sides. So we'll go ahead. I'm going to fix that a little bit. You want to hold it well before, make sure it's secure before you move on. And then we'll proceed to glue the tabs on the top. So I am adding glue to those 3 remaining tabs on the side there. Then we'll line the adjacent edge to the tab fold, making sure that each section is matched up at the score lines. And just carefully make sure each section is secure before you go to the last section. And again, you can kind of run your finger around across that edge to make sure they're matched up properly. And then you can go on to complete each side similarly. So now I'm going to fix this one. Just add a little glue in there because it wasn't the right way to do that. With the textured paper, again, cardstock, you just have to add additional pressure sometimes, especially with little tabs and strangely shaped items. So we'll go ahead and add glue to those 3 side tabs again, and again just match them up, matching those tab folds up with the adjacent edges, making sure they're glued inside so you can't see them, and gluing from bottom to top. And we'll do that on the 2 remaining sides as well. So now that we're done with that last side, we're going to add the panel. So you can see this is what it looks like completed, and the box goes on. So the only thing we have to do is add those side panels. So we want to make sure we fold it on the scores a little bit. Just makes it easier to attach. And now when we add the panels on, we'll want them to add them, glue them on from the top edge to the bottom, and make sure it's centered on that panel on left and right sides. So just match it up to that top section, line it up to the top edge, apply pressure to that top section, and then the middle, and then the bottom. So I'd go from top to bottom on every panel. I was using cardstock, printed cardstock, so it was a little thicker and harder to apply cardstock to cardstock. But you'll just continue to do all 4 panels similarly. If it were paper, it might be a little bit easier, like a printed paper, but as I stated earlier in the video, on one of the other boxes, it's just I had to apply cardstock to cardstock, so it makes it a little bit harder on a shaped side like this. And just finishing up, getting that last panel on. And once that's done, the box is complete. It's ready to go. Use it for any time, pretty much any occasion. It's just a fun little box. So there you go, and this is how the lid goes on. That's it. Kind of doesn't fit snug, it just kind of sits on top, but I hope you enjoyed these projects and these boxes, and thank you so much for watching.